God created life with his master design. DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. The scientific truth behind it will blow you away. On February 28, 1953, Cambridge University scientists James Watson and Francis Crick made one of the greatest scientific discoveries.
A 4-letter digital code, A, T, C, and G, carefully placed deep within the DNA of every single cell of every living thing.
Digital code of identity. Thymine, cytosine, guanine.
Controls over 3 billion genetic switches that make amino acids.
The protein building blocks of all plants and animals. Over 3 billion genetic switches in one cell. What the cell?
Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, commented that DNA contains a digital language more complex than any computer language ever devised by man.
A, T, C, and G. It's God's design for you and me. And every living thing you see is coded A, T, C, and G. A, T, C, and G. It's God's design for you and me. And every flower and every tree is coded A, T, C, and G.
Now think about this, Bill Nye. Each of our trillions of body cells contains a single strand of DNA that, when stretched out, is about 6 feet in length.
The DNA found inside of each of our 37 trillion cells contains all of the genetic instructions for building the proteins that make all of these tissues and organs of our bodies.
If you took all of the strands of DNA in each of our 37 trillion body cells and put them end to end, they would stretch the diameter of our solar system and back again.
600 times. Over 10 billion miles of DNA.
A teaspoon of human DNA can store the entire Wikipedia Google catalog recorded in every known language. And there would still be enough room left to store all the information in every book ever written. A, T, C, and G. It's God's design for you and me. And every living thing you see is coded A, T, C, and G. A, T, C, and G. It's God's design for you and me. And every living thing you see, every plant and every tree and every dog and cat you see is coded A, T, C, and G.
For years now, Bill Nye, we were all taught the lie that only 2% of our DNA controls our body in every way.
We were taught that the remaining 98% of our DNA strand was simply genetic junk containing random mutations passed down through the generations. The lie goes on to say, if you combine beneficial mutations over many generations, you probably can change a monkey into a man.
Scientists call this process evolution by natural selection.
Useless genetic junk? That's dumb. We know that 98% of the remaining DNA strand is covered by billions of coded genetic switches that control every detail of an organism's function and design. Contrary to what evolution say, the random mutations do not improve our DNA.
Jacob is correct. Evolution teaches the lie that we inherit generations of random mutations.
A random mutation is any change that takes place to our DNA.
But not in a good way. Random mutations only destroy life. They are the fundamental causes of aging and disease.
We are constantly being exposed to too much sunlight and too many hazardous chemicals in our environment,
which does damage our DNA.
The good news is that God programmed our DNA to repair itself millions of times every day.
But just don't listen to us, Bill Nye.
Hear what scientists say from many nations about natural selection and random mutations.
I'm skeptical of the claim.
I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical.
Yes, I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical.
I'm Skeptical.
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 Skeptical
Of claims
for the ability
of random mutations
and natural selection
to account for
the complexity.
the complexity
to account for the complexity of life.
careful examination
examination
Of the evidence.
For Darwinian theory
should be encouraged.
The word species is simplified defined as a group of living that reproduce after their own kind.
God created each species of life with its own special genetic design
to help them adapt to changes in their environment over time. There's still fishes, Bill Nye. Their species didn't change, except their beaks are slightly rearranged.
And cats are still cats of all different breeds.
With long hair and short hair, they're just dogs that you see. Take a good look at us, Bill Nye. Our skin and hair is not the same. Are you saying genetic mutations are to blame?
And finally, Bill Nye, if evolution's a fact,
Who taught the North American monarch to fly to Mexico and back?
It's an annual round trip over 6,000 miles.
The answer is magnetic receptors. Scientists have recently discovered that all migratory animals have magnetic receptors carefully placed in their brains and beak
that let them see Earth's magnetic lines invisible to you and me.
that's GPS from God's design. Doesn't that totally blow your mind?